right, so I am Jenny Hogg Ashwell of Love's Curriculum, and I am a spiritual mentor and the divine scribe of the book, Love's Curriculum. I got a picture here. And as the title of the talk said, I actually started my career as a lawyer. And so today we're going to be exploring how do you step from one place to another and follow your soul's guidance. How do you step through the fear? And so I'm going to share some of the things I've learned on my journey, and that I now work as a spiritual mentor and a guide connecting people with their angelic guidance to do that. So I'm glad you're here. And the book, Love's Curriculum, is something I scribe for the High Council. The High Council includes Jesus and the archangels and other light teachers. And it is now a bestseller on Amazon. And I was just on Hay House Radio's Bright New Voices, which was very exciting. It's exciting for me because I came to realize it's my soul's assignment, my purpose, to scribe the book and to get this message out there. So I'm honored to be here with you today. This is dear to my heart. It's been my own journey to move through any fears and to really show up and shine. And so now I enjoy, not only enjoy, it's my heart's calling to help others do that as well. So before we get in much farther, I'd like to just surrender this talk. So I'm going to invite Spirit to come through me to you, that whatever needs to touch your heart and soul will do so. And so I set that intention now and ask that that be so. And so it is. So I'd like to start with my story, some of my journey, if that's all right. Okay. So as I was saying, I started as a lawyer, my career as a lawyer. But I want to go back to high school first. Because in high school, I had a sense of what my heart wanted to do. I felt like I had a calling to make a difference in the world at that age. And I also struggled with feeling that I didn't belong. And I think maybe all of us have a sense of that when we're in high school, that we don't belong. You probably can relate. And for me, the flavor of the not belonging was I was really good in school and I would get teased about that. I had suffered from obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, although I don't think I really knew that's what it was called at the time. It was back in the mid-'80s. It wasn't as known. But I just definitely felt different. I had different aspirations than my peers. But I had this calling. I'm going to save the world. And I was a valedictorian at the high school graduation. And I said, watch out, world, here we come. And then I got to university. I went to university in the Bay Area, Berkeley. I'm from the States. And I really wanted to belong. And I got off track. I started to make what others thought were important. I fell in love, madly in love, with a soulmate or someone I definitely had karma with that I learned many years later. And I began to listen to what he thought I should do. I began to get very logical. What am I going to make money doing? And so I actually ended up switching into business and then went to law school because I didn't know what else to do. It made sense. It was a complete decision from my head, logical. Maybe you can relate. You've made those decisions. But I really lost touch with what do I want to do? What does my heart want to do? And so I had 3 years of law school, lots of debt, ended up getting my first job as a lawyer in Phoenix. And on the very first day of my full-time law position, we had just had the orientation, and I had a beautiful office with, all those things you think of, oh, be a lawyer and you'll get all these perks and those things that kind of called to me logically. But I was walking into the washroom, the women's washroom, after our orientation, and it was like, oh, I felt this feeling in my solar plexus, in my gut, and this inner voice that said, oh my gosh, this is not what I wanted to do. Remember, you had other things. There was something your heart wanted to do. And it was shocking on my first day of my job, but I didn't freak out because it just resonated. It was so true. There was a part of me that was like, oh, right, okay, how do we get back on track? Because it felt that inner voice was telling me something that was really necessary for me to follow through on. And so that's when I began to listen to that inner voice that had woken up. I like to call it my wake-up call from my soul. And I began what I would call my spiritual personal growth journey that would bring me to an event like this. I began to read all the Hay House books. I saw Deepak Chopra speak in Phoenix when I think there were probably maybe 30 people, and he had an overhead projector and he was just lecturing, if you may, I date myself by talking about overhead projectors. And I read Carolyn Meese' Anatomy of the Spirit, and that just blew my mind. I realized that my marriage was unhealthy. I got support to work through that. I took Reiki. I was called to angelic communication courses, and it was like my heart woke up. This is what I love. And so I made plans to leave being a lawyer. And so I did. It took 3 years from the time I had the wake-up call to leaving. And at the same time as well, I realized I needed to leave my marriage. That was part of my soul path. And then I ended up moving to Canada. And it became a journey of following spirit. Journaling to my angels. I have like stacks and stacks of angel journals. Maybe some of you have done that technique where I encourage you, if you're not, talk to me later about it. It's a great technique. And I ended up becoming the mom that I always had wanted to be a mom, and just really diving into the spiritual personal growth path. I retrained in transpersonal counseling psychology. And then in 2013, I was graduating from my diploma program for counseling. And my husband was excited because now I was going to earn money as a counselor. And Spirit called me again. Oh, you need to take that class on intuition. Right, I've been thinking about that for a year. And so I pushed a bit. There was a bit of resistance around me, but I said, no, I know this is right. And so I took this class with my mom, which was amazing to do. And a couple of months after that, I woke up to my soul assignment to scribe the book Love's Curriculum. And that too was a huge journey through fear, because here I was suddenly scribing or being a channel. That's not something that I knew even how to talk about with people. I was afraid to mention it to my neighbors. There was all this fear that I'd be burned at the stake was coming up. And so there was several months of really stepping through that fear. And so that's what I want to share with you, is how do we move through? Because if you're here, I imagine you have a bit of an idea that you want to become something more, you want to share more of your light. Is that true? Yeah, right. That's why you came to this talk. And in my work, I also have a Facebook group called Lightworkers and Love Advocates, and people answer questions. And if you're interested, come on Facebook and find me. But I ask questions about how are you doing stepping into your purpose. And most people are struggling. They're struggling to find the courage, the finances, they doubt their intuition, they just can't get unstuck. And so I want to share today there are more, but 3 of the keys that I found. So let's get to key 1. Key 1 is reframing the negative. And so what do I mean by reframing the negative? So you're probably feeling on your journey lost at times, frustrated, stuck. Something's wrong here. Why can't I know I'm supposed to do something. Why is it not just all unfolding? And so to reframe it that it's part of the journey. And I'm sure you may have heard this before. It's like layers of an onion. But it's my experience, it really is true. That you can get a knowing of what your soul wants to do, but then the pearly gates don't just open and it just like all happens magically. In fact, the first thing that usually happens is whatever's in your way shows up so that you can move through it, so that you can heal it, so that you can step into this greater version of yourself. And so I call it removing the barriers to love. And in the book Love's Curriculum, or if you're a Course in Miracles student, or Marianne Williamson, you probably have heard that term before. So it's like we're ultimately connected to love. That's who we are, our purpose, but we've got these like barriers that have developed. So why do they develop? How do they develop? One is it's part of being human. We are here with an ego part of our mind that thinks we're separate. As human beings, we just have these blocks and resistances to our divinity. And so it's part of the journey of awakening, of enlightenment, to learn to open past those. And the other barriers that show up are from our past traumas, things that happened when we were young, things that happened in our past lives. Karma, you could call some of it. So I mentioned that earlier, the boyfriend that I fell in love with at university and changed who I was in a way to be with him. When I was a mom with 2 little kids and married again, I met a man who sparked all this remembering of these past lives. And I had to start to heal and look at what was that? What were the stories that you made up when you were little or from past lives that are limiting you now into stepping into that greater purpose? So the barriers to love can look like that. Traumas from our past as well, grief, heartbreak, things that we haven't healed. So they cause this closing of our heart. And our heart is our center for love, for divine love. In Love's Curriculum, they talk a lot about we're meant to share our heart light, or your heart wants to do it. Our heart has all this amazing wisdom. In fact, something that I'm really drawn to is the heart math. I don't know if you've heard of that, but they're looking at science and seeing how much our heart is what actually has our wisdom. So we need to remove those barriers that we've put up. And let's see, I think there was another one I wanted to mention. That's all right. So barriers to love that need to be healed, removed. What does that look like? It means healing the past, doing some of that work, looking at your past lives, what needs to be healed. When I first got married when I was 25, I had plans. I would be married at 25. I was a lawyer. When I was 30, we were going to have kids. Everything was going to be great. And then I began to wake up to my soul, and it looked like everything just blew up. I don't want to be a lawyer. We're getting divorced. I'm moving to Canada. I don't know. But if I look and reframe it, it was all part of the journey to get to here, where I feel like I'm actually being me, more so than I ever was. So to trust that journey, to reframe it, that you're on the journey of awakening, even though you're going to experience bumps on that journey. And so one of my favorite teachers is Ram Dass, and he speaks about how, I'm going to see if I can paraphrase this without looking or get it right, that, I may have to look. Well, basically, that suffering is the way to wisdom, that suffering is our pathway to becoming wise. It's like our school to becoming wise. So if you take everything and bring it in, reframe it, heal, grow from it, bring love to it, bring love to yourself, then it can become a journey with ups and downs, but the way you ride those ups and downs becomes more manageable so that you can keep moving forward, which is where we started with this. How do you move through all that to keep stepping into your purpose? So then let's look at the second key. And the second key is navigating the ego, or embracing the ego. And so what do I mean by ego? So ego is the part of our mind that believes we're separate from God, from divinity, from each other. It's, again, part of being human. We come in to be human, and we have this ego part of our minds. Again, if you study A Course in Miracles, that's something I've studied, and Love's Curriculum, my book, is very much related to it. Again, it's the ego is this belief in separation. And how does it show up for us? Well, it shows up as the inner critic that says you're not good enough, you can't do it, who do you think you are to even try? It shows up as self-consciousness that would hold you back, fears of being embarrassed. It shows up as doubts about your abilities. Again, I'm not good enough. Many, you might relate to it as definitely it's that inner critic that's chattering away, telling you all the reasons that you shouldn't do something. It's also the part of us that's thinks it needs to keep us safe and guarded from love. Don't open your heart, or don't step into your soul's purpose. Who knows what could happen? So it's trying to keep everything controlled, certain. And so as human beings or spiritual beings waking up, we're going to have this ego that comes with us. And again, it includes the fears and the doubts as well. So I think we'd like to think that we could just get rid of it. But again, on my journey of continuing to step through and keep growing into my purpose, it's always there. In fact, counterintuitively, as soon as you take a step and say, yeah, look at me, I'm shining, I'm listening to my heart, boom, it can often come up even louder to try and shut you down. So you might be doing a talk like this and hearing it chatter away. Or after having a great, let's say you share a poem or something that your heart wants to share, the next day you might be like, oh my God, I look so stupid, why did I do that? Even though in the moment you probably felt great. So I call those ego attacks or ego backlash. And it happens because you are stepping into your purpose. You're saying, I'm going to trust God, not the ego. I'm going to surrender and go into the unknown instead of stay in control. And so it gets activated, it gets defensive, it thinks it needs to protect you. So if you're going to keep stepping forward, you have to learn to accept that it's going to be there, embrace it, and learn how to navigate it. So I'm going to quickly go. There's lots of tools. In fact, I wrote a chapter in the Spiritual Leaders book about this, how tools to use to navigate it. So I'm going to cover the key ones here. One is meditation. I imagine that's not the first time you've heard that meditation can be good for you. So many benefits to meditation. But one is that, well, I'm going to backtrack. There are so many different forms, and I really like all of them for their unique, like guided meditation can really make us feel connected to our guides. Drumming can be meditative. So the one I'm talking about right now is where you watch your thoughts and release them. Oh, here comes a thought, I'm gonna let it go. Or, oh look, I was off, I stopped concentrating on my breath, I'm gonna bring myself back. But anything that has you start to distinguish what's going on with your thoughts helps you learn to navigate the ego. Because basically it's like you've got two voices, the voice for love and purpose, and that you're divine, and the voice of the ego. So it's really important to learn to know which is which. And again, you won't get rid of the ego, but if you know it, you can call it for what it is, and you can say, oh, okay, I hear you, but no thanks. So the second tool that's really key for this as well is bringing the ego to the light. It does not survive in the light. The ego likes the shadows. It likes you to keep it all inside, what you're thinking about yourself, or if you're feeling afraid. So as soon as you share it with someone, it's like, it just loses its power. Now, you can do that in journaling, getting it out, but ideally it's if you have other people who understand, who aren't going to buy into your ego, but who understand this journey and can reinforce, hey, it's telling you a lie. You really are good. You really can do this. So bringing it to the light, because again, it's like it loses its power and you can more kind of push it aside and then step forward into your purpose. So then I'll share. So when I was scribing the book, Love's Curriculum, again, you'd think, oh, I know it's my assignment. Okay, here we go. It's all going to be easy. No. So I sat down after getting through the fear of, can I even do this? And all the doubts, like, who do you think you are? And you've never done this before. And I finally sat down at my computer, closed my eyes and said, okay, guides, what do you want me to write for Love's Curriculum? And I just started to, like, this inner dictation, and I was just with my eyes closed, and then all of a sudden it was this voice going, what do you think you're doing? You're not doing this. This is a bunch of junk. You can't do this. I was like, whoa. And so here's another technique. I surrendered it. I said to the guides, take it. Can you help me? This is happening. I even typed that out. So I had this dialogue with Jesus. He's on the High Council. And I said, Jesus, these doubts are coming up. Can you take them? And just doing that allowed me to move on, and the flow would start again. So bringing it to the light, surrendering it to your guides, asking your angels to help you get past the ego. And again, I also noticed, like I was mentioning earlier, that as soon as you're really surrendering, the ego is going to come up even louder. So I would be typing, and then I'd hear this strong, stop, you shouldn't be doing this. And it was like, oh, I must really be onto something. So you can start to, when the ego comes up strongly, instead of having it take you out because you're believing it, it can be a signal that, hey, you're doing really good. You must really have your heart open. You must really be on your spirit path if the ego's that worried about you. So it's like you get to just navigate, you learn to use it differently, not try and make it go away. In fact, in Love's curriculum, the High Council says we need to bring the ego to love too. It needs to be embraced in love as well. And so let's get on to the final tool I'm going to share today, step 3, and that's building your support team. So how many of you are really good at helping others? You are helpers, givers, you serve really well, but how easy is it for you to ask for help yourself? We often struggle with that, especially if we're called on a helping, healing path. And yet, the only way we're actually going to live our divine purpose is if we receive love and help. Because ultimately, being an expression of love, being on purpose, is receiving love, giving love, being this channel of both. So what does the support team include? One would be people in form. Friends, mentors, teachers, counselors, like-minded sisters, women, brothers, people who you can share your journey with, who understand it, who can, again, you can bring your ego or your doubts to them and they can help you see the truth and keep moving forward. So those are your helpers in form. And then you've got your helpers in the spiritual form. So all of you have angels and guides wanting to help you, and we just need to ask. And so I imagine there's lots of tools you'll be seeing here today that are designed to help you with that communication. And it's one real fun part of the work I do is connecting for people with their guides as well as helping them learn to connect. Because ideally, we could be asking for their help constantly and our lives would be much easier. But what we tend to do is to go independent. Or, oh, I'll jog hard, I'll ask for help, thanks, and then we'll, get going. And then things are going sideways. I'm like, oh yeah, I could keep asking for help. So you can ask for help, ideally continuously, all the time if we asked for help. Ask and you shall receive. So just to remember that they're there for you and to develop a relationship and to nurture that relationship so that you have that support. And then the third part of your support team is yourself, because we really need to learn to love ourselves on this journey, to be gentle with yourself, to be your own coach for yourself, to bring yourself up. It's identical to divine love, is being loving to yourself. And so that journey of, can I be loving to myself? Is there forgiveness I need to do there? How do I master self-love and compassion? And ideally, the amount that we can love and have compassion for ourselves is truly the amount that we can offer someone else. And in Love's curriculum, again, they're really clear on that. They say self-love is a critical step on the path of awakening. It's like we're not going to get on our soul's journey and be living our purpose fully if we don't have that care and compassion for ourselves. So those are the 3 keys. We had, oh, now I can't remember them. Reframe the negative, thank you. Navigate and embrace the ego, and then build your support team. So it's been an honor to be here. I want to end with a quote, because the why do we want to live our soul's purpose? And I think it's very important to remember this. Like, each one of you is called to bring your light here, and is called to awaken here, to help everyone awaken. And I truly believe that. So I'm going to end with a quote from Love's curriculum. As each light source, each person begins to shine and spread love out from their heart centers, the world will be enveloped in a pinkish-white light of love. And it will filter out to the others who are not living there yet, and to the structures of the world, to business, enterprises, schools, store owners, the economy, all the formed systems of government and functioning and economy. It starts with each light worker. You, each light worker, were placed and assigned to this time in order to ignite your heart, light, and center, and begin shining that in the world. So that's the why we want to learn to step through those fears and doubts and to get support. So thank you very much. It's been beautiful to be here with you and to serve you. Thank you.